Greetings, everyone. It's Dr. Mordecai, and thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Discovering Your Mission with Dr. Mordecai. On today, my guest, Dr. Jermaine Whirl, president of Valdosta Technical College in Georgia. Here's another prime example of the power of building a LinkedIn community. Dr. Whirl is someone who I came in contact with years ago in the digital space through LinkedIn and have continued to follow his journey. He is doing amazing, groundbreaking work in the state of Georgia and has now become a board member of the American Association of Community Colleges. He is doing amazing work. His college is doing some outstanding work in the advancement of workforce development, social and economic mobility, and we're going to hear about his story. Here goes a story of someone who, again, had no aspirations originally to be a higher education professional, wanted to become an economist, and somehow became one of the national leaders in the community college space. Without further ado, my interview with Dr. Jermaine Whirl. Greetings, everyone. It's Dr. Mordecai, and I am here with Dr. Jermaine Whirl, who serves as the proud president of Valdosta Technical College. I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time, and let me just start by saying I admire you, good brother. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. I remember you earning the presidency while I was vice president and watching that journey and the climb. And so all of the work that you've been doing in your community and all of the accolades that you've been leading the institution and for yourself personally. Let me just start by saying congratulations, sir.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. And it's likewise. I keep watching your movements and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your platform today.
It's all good. So listen, we've got a few questions for you because I know that folks are going to learn. They're going to watch this interview and learn a lot today. So let's just first start with this. You currently have been serving as president now for more than 2 years, making a lot of impact, but it didn't start there for you. Where talk to us about the journey. How did you become the president of Valdosta Technical College?
Well, it started almost about 17 years ago. I was very fortunate to be a very active person. Even from high school, I was student class president. And so when I got to higher ed at Winthrop University, got very involved, being an ambassador, giving tours and all those things. And I had a mentor at Winthrop that saw a lot in me. And her name was Dr. Debbie Garrick. She gave me my first job in higher ed to work with alumni relations and institutional advancement. And that was the first time I actually learned about practicalities of that type of role. And I didn't stop there though. I had a job, enjoyed it, but really my goal was to take my economics degree and go be an economist. So I did what everybody did back in those days. You get an MBA in finance and go to Wall Street and make a ton of money. But my story started going back home. I went back, worked on my MBA at night, and got a phenomenal job working at a group home with students in the system. And I was there to lead the education program with no education degree, no social work background. They asked me to come and create this education program. And that's really where I got in touch with education as a mission. And then indirectly, I hired a math tutor that had just retired from the 2-year college system in California. He had taught for 30 years mathematics. And he was like, man, have you ever thought about teaching at a 2-year college? And I said, of course not. I'm trying to get my MBA and go to Wall Street. He was like, man, you can teach. You need to think about it. And so that's really what spurred it. As I wrapped up my MBA that May, the president, Dr. Jerry Hunter, asked me to come in his office. I had submitted my thesis and I was, ready to go on the open market. And he said, I'm going to ask you to do this assignment. And I said, well, I just submitted my thesis. I mean, is this extra credit? You kind of get, you do all this work. I had 4 classes my last semester too, 3 economic grad classes and the strategic planning with him. And so I'm done. Like I'm finished. He was like, no, I want you to go back home and I want you to write this college from scratch. And I'm sitting there like, well, why should I write a college from scratch? He's like, because you're going to be a college president one day. That was 2008. And that was the first time college presidencies even entered my mind. I was 22, 23 at the time. So, that was a very foreign concept. But he was like, you got the skill sets. You need to think about being a college president. And so between him and Dr. Morris Roper, the math tutor, they talked me into pursuing education as a faculty member. So I was granted an opportunity to teach at a 2-year college in Georgia, got tenure track teaching economics, and then really the rest is history. But I'll tell you the story about that. I had no teaching experience, none. I had 3 references from my faculty and the college president. They hired me with no experience, but my teaching demo was so spectacular. They're like, we got to give this brother a chance. And so I always thank Dr. Black. But I did tell him in the interview, and this is, I think, important for us to have confidence in what we know to be is true. In that interview, I was 23, no higher ed teaching experience. And I told him in the interview, in 3 years, I'll be a dean. And the provost just laughed. Tim Goodman, he was like laughing hysterically. He's like, dude, you got to get tenure first. You got to be an associate, a full professor, then chair, then dean. And I said, no, in 3 years, I'll be a dean. Because I already started scoping out what was a dean requirement in Georgia. And it was 3 years minimum requirement with SACS, accreditation experience. And so for 3 years, I finished the second master's at night while dating my then girlfriend, now my wife. And I did everything at that college. Started the athletics program, Phi Theta Kappa, honors program. A lot of that I did, no course releases, no extra pay. But my CV went from 1 page to 4 in 3 years. And I got my first dean job at 26. And so I tell people it's about the work. And when you know you have a destination, then I was driven by that. And so that's how my story took off. Dean, got to a research institution, another deanship, a vice president, and then here I am, president of Augusta Tech.
I love it. I love it. Let me ask you a follow-up question to that. And thank you for sharing that. What did you do in the moments where you had doubters? What as we have watchers and listeners, I'm sure that they've got their own journeys that they are going through. What advice would you have? What did you do to keep yourself whole? Because I can only imagine everyone was not clapping for your successes and this 3-year climb that you had outlined for yourself.
I think it's always about fit and being where you're supposed to be at the right time with the right people. I only quit one job in my higher ed experience, and that was because the president of the institution basically had a lid. I'm a big John Maxwell fan, and he talks about the law of the lid. And, in leadership, if you are a 3, your organization, the people under you can't go any higher than the leader. And unfortunately, that department I was operating, we were 28th in the state when I got there. We were number 3 in 1 year. We flipped that whole department. But the president of the college had challenges with the success that I was having and was creating all sorts of barriers. And so I left that job. And I tell people this, and this is very important. I was making $65,000 as my first deanship. I left that job because the leadership was not in connection to what I needed. And I took a $30,000 pay cut to be a faculty member.
Wow. For
2 years. But I did it because at the end of the day, our success cannot be tied up if we're in a situation that we're not allowed to blossom. And you got to know that for yourself. My wife was there. And, I tell people for 2 years, we just ate rice and beans. We didn't go to the movies. We didn't have any vacations. We had a newborn. But we didn't struggle necessarily. We just budgeted down. Never missed a mortgage payment, never missed a car payment. But what I did, as I started projecting that next opportunity, I was very intentional about, okay, I need to work for a vice president that understands my potential, that will not be intimidated by what I bring, that wants to develop me as an individual. And I was able to find that person in Metro Atlanta. And when I got to Gwinnett Tech, we went straight to the top. Because again, it's about making sure it's the fit. So the fit, I would tell people, is more important than anything else, making sure you go to the right institution with the right community. I had that one mistake, and I didn't make it ever since.
I love it. I love it. So much wisdom there. I'm going to keep us moving. I want to respect your time. What have been the major lessons that you have learned? What are some of the wisdom that...
Dr. Mordecai, did I lose you?
We can pick back up from here. How about now? Can you see me and hear me now?
I can see and hear you now. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll just pick up from here. So, Brock, we'll pick up at... looks like 8 minutes, 33 seconds. So thank you so much for that, President Whirl. Let me ask you this. There are a new generation of college presidents that are getting ready, and they're waiting for their opportunity. They're waiting for their fit. What advice could you share with them right now in order to prepare them for the role, or just lessons that you've learned that along the way that have held to be true for you that you think will be beneficial for them to hear?
I always say start doing the next job in your current job. So if you're a dean, you want to be a vice president, start doing vice president work. This is how you do it. When I was dean and I worked with Dr. Seals, who was my VP of academic affairs, I said, Dr. Seals, give me everything that you don't want to do. If you don't want to do the academic schedule, let me review it. If you don't want to do procurement and submit time, leave, let me do it, because I wanted to get access to understanding her role. I asked to come to board meetings just as a visitor, not to say anything, but just to be in the room to kind of see how things operated. But you got to get that experience, and then you have to do it in a way that really positions your superior to be successful. And if you can take work off of them and make them look good, then you start getting into that next role, because then when you interview and they say, do you have experience in X? I'm like, actually, I do, because I was able to do X, Y, and Z. Classic example, when I was at Georgia Southern, I took 2 years at the research institution. I took on all the accreditation for AACSB and SACS with no additional pay. I just wanted it because I took that weight off the department chair. And so that was something I was able to sell to the vice president at my next job, having that experience. And so never take an opportunity to not do extra when you're in your current role, and always try to think about the things that you can do to move the needle as you prepare for the next opportunity.
You know, one of the things and it's a term, and I would love to get your thoughts about this term, the term buy-in, and I'll set the context here. In more than just a little bit, in just over 2 years, you've been able to, and I will read your bio. Your bio's already been read here, but I mean, we're talking about new buildings, seeking bonds, new program development, fundraising. You've been able to do this in a very short amount of time. Was it about buy-in, or was it about something else? What allowed for you to be so far thus effective in the mission advancement of that institution?
I think it's a few things. I think it's authentic, visionary leadership. People are hungry for new and exciting work. And I try to give people things to be excited about. I use the book Blue Ocean Strategy. That's one of my favorite books. And it talks about, in business, we tend to focus on what they call red oceans. So the college down the street has an accounting program. I'm going to start one. And so what Blue Ocean really prioritizes is that instead of just doing what the other colleges are doing, do something completely different. Do something that they haven't even thought about. And then go find partners that have that same mentality and find an opportunity to do it. And that's what we've been successful in doing. You know, donors do not want to keep giving to the same opportunities. They don't want to give to the same priorities. They are looking for what's new, what's fresh, what's innovative. And so those who understand that can package it, talk about it, and sell it to a community. It's very easy to get buy-in. But here's the big part. You have to have some third party to provide you the credibility. Here in Augusta, what I figured out pretty quickly was that there was at least 2 or 3 entities that I had to partner with to bring the validation of our institution up. One was Augusta National, the Masters Tournament. We had no experience, but everybody in the world knows the Masters Tournament. They know that golf tournament. Once we got in partnership with them and they started working with us, people were like, oh, well, Augusta Tech has to be legit, because Augusta National they don't just fool around with anybody, right? So it's called the crowding in effect in economics. You crowd in folks that are partners, but also folks that can help validate and bring your brand up. And so we rebranded. We worked with folks that can help with our visibility. And then we had to do the work. And doing that and delivering on what we said, now the community is just a buzz. And so it seems simple, but the core remnants of that is high-level vision, doing some things that other people are not willing to do or scared to do, and then finding partners that have that similar entrepreneurial spirit.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Here goes another question for you. We're almost towards the end of this interview. I wish I could spend a whole lot more time. I may have to bring you back for a part 2, man. But let me ask you this. What are your thoughts about the future? of higher education. There's a lot of information that's coming out now. I think about American Council on Education, their recent study that they released about the expected retirements of presidents. There's so many studies going out there now about the turnover of presidents, or those that aren't necessarily being successful in the roles. And then you've got a whole new generation of educators coming into the space. We've got all this disruption in the economic stratosphere. What are your thoughts about the future of higher education?
I think it's to be determined based upon leadership. I think if we have phenomenal leadership, individuals like you who are very innovative, that are focused on the social economic mobility of our community, that are tied into the regional economics and economic development of our communities and states, we'll be successful. If we go back to doing things the traditional way, we will not be successful. So to me, the sky truly is the limit. There is so much potential. Higher ed is definitely not dead. But the things that we do and how we operate, we're going to have a new paradigm shift and a new business model in terms of what does that look like to actually meet our students and future students' needs, the class of 2030, the class of 2050. And that will definitely take a different mindset. But I think we have champions. We have people out there that are positioned to do this work. We just got to ensure that they get the development to get a seat at the table.
Outstanding. Here's my final question for you. For all of my guests, I always ask this question. I'm a firm believer in the power of mission. I know you are as well. So let me just ask this question of you. What is your personal mission statement and why?
So my personal mission statement comes from my favorite superhero, Batman. And Batman said a long time ago, everything's impossible until somebody does it. And I believe that, man. When I came here and I told folks that we were going to do stuff, people were looking at me like I had two horns in my head. And now they're like, you know what? 2 years ago, you sure did tell us you were going to get a hospital. So people have to see and do. And once you start doing the things that people thought were impossible, resources, influencers, money, all of those things will come. But go out and do the things that you really believe are going to move the needle. Don't be fearful, and partner, you're going to be quite successful. So again, everything's impossible until somebody does it.
You know what? And I think about what you and I were talking about offline during your time as vice president for learning and workforce development at Greenville Technical College. It had not been done, and it was achieved under your tenure that you all were the first 2-year college to be approved for a bachelor's degree in South Carolina. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And again, same thing. Everybody said it could not be done. They would not change the state law. You would not get state house support. Not only did we get it done, but it was the fastest moving bill ever approved in South Carolina's history, 133 days with the governor's signature, and unanimously approved in the House and the Senate. So again, it can get done.
Dr. Jermaine Whirl, let me tell you, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your friendship. I am looking forward to a lifetime of us working together to advance this work in our respective communities. Take care, my friend.
Dr. Whirl, once again, thank you so much for your time and wisdom shared. If you've watched previous episodes of Discovering Your Mission with Dr. Mordecai, then you know that at this point in the show, I like to share with you my 3 key takeaways. And I certainly want to encourage you to find your own key takeaways based on where you are in your personal life and journey. But here are my 3 I want to share with you. Number 1, we heard Dr. Whirl talk about mentorship creates opportunity. He had a mentor that saw a skill set or skill sets in him, provided the opportunity for him to serve, and it created a whole new world and reality for him to delve into the world of higher education. How can you mentor someone and provide them the opportunity? That's my first key takeaway. Secondly, he talked about you must put yourself in an environment where you can blossom. He talked about, this aspect of leadership that was not in alignment with who he was, how he saw things to be, and had to make the decision to put himself intentionally in a new environment and a new space. But you also heard him talk about the sacrifice that he made in terms of earning less money in order to make this pivot, make this change. But now think about looking back, you see that sacrifice towards himself, believing in himself, seeing the value of himself led him to a better opportunity. And I want to encourage you to make the sacrifices necessary to pivot, to ensure that you are putting yourself in the best environment to blossom. Last but certainly not least, you heard Dr. Whirl talk about being willing to do extra in preparation for the next opportunity. I think that we've kind of created this culture and this understanding that, well, if I do one more thing, that means I need to be paid for one more thing. I remember coming up and I'm still climbing the charts, if you will, in terms of higher education and just life. But there are going to be opportunities to serve and then do more. And I'm not doing this to expect a dollar return. I'm doing this because I am learning more. I'm adding value to the institutional mission or to the mission at hand, and it is preparing me for the next stage of service that I'll be given the opportunity to do. Understanding that that next opportunity won't come about until I learn how to do more and serve more and add value even more. Dr. Whirl talked about that and how it was transformative and preparing for him to serve at the level nationally that he's serving at today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I certainly enjoyed providing it to you. Please join itsdrmordecai.com newsletter. Subscribe so you can stay in tune with new episodes, new content, new information that's going to be rolling out on a regular basis. Take care, everyone. I'll see you soon.